Hi, electrostatic discharge or ESD is an electrical charge that is stored in something like human body and can jump to devices like laptops and cell phones and damage them. So engineers do a lot of testing on these devices to make sure they won't fail. What they use for testing is something called an ESD simulator for a gun. Here is a 25 kilovolt discharge to a grounded box. The tip of the gun here simulates a human finger. Always be careful with your tools. Now, they usually zap a completely assembled unit, but sometimes it's also beneficial to zap a bare board like this one and see what happens on the actual board. Never hold the board you're zapping with your hand because the ESD will jump to your body through the board. Now this board is connected to ground with this wire, so if I try to zap it, it will continuously discharge. But if I disconnect the ground wire, it will only jump a few times. Because now the board is charged to the same level as the gun and it doesn't jump anymore. Always discharge a charged board before touching it. Some friends ask, isn't it the electrical current that kills you? Well, yes, but the voltage needs to be high enough to generate enough current. Something that's capable of generating hundreds of amps doesn't necessarily hurt you. For example, a capacitor like this one can generate a lot of current. And right now, it's charged more than 40 volts, you can see on the meter. But right now I'm touching the wires and I can't even feel it because the voltage is not high enough. Who's this? No, I'm not Steve. Wrong number. Today I decided to go with a smaller and a lower power circuit, like a blinker. You can see there is a LED and a couple of components on this circuit. If I turn on the power supply, it starts blinking. There is a capacitor on this circuit that's responsible for the timing. And you can see a tiny negative sign beside it. That means that that side needs to be connected to ground or negative. I'm going to run an electrohydraulic system of this car battery for you. I just tighten these nuts here. Always be careful not to short your car battery. Now I connected these cables to the battery and all I want to do is to pass them under. If I can just pass these cables under the table here. Always finish your wiring before connecting to your power supply. Now instead I'm going to use my power limited supply up here that will drive this pump that's made of this DC brushed motor here, and it's going to run fluid into the cylinder back here that will move it around. Now I enable the power supply. Always double check your connections. Hi, today I'm going to talk about fixing digital cameras, such as this one. I've fixed a number of digital cameras in the past and the majority of their problems was loose connectors inside the camera. Now this camera works just fine and takes good pictures too. But I'll just open it for demonstration purposes. Here I've opened the camera, but the first thing to remember is that there are a lot of bits and pieces and small and large screws that go in the camera. So always remember what those were and store them nicely to avoid losing them. Now let's take a look at the camera here. There are a number of electronic circuits in the camera and there are connectors everywhere, like this one, a connector here, two connectors there, one connector here. This is actually a connector, and if you can see, there is a connector under the connector here. And if I flip the camera, and you can see the lens here, and if I remove the lens, you'll see the giant flash capacitor back here. Ow! Piece of shit! Apparently the flash capacitor is holding around 300 volts of charge in it, and it can hurt a lot if you touch it, so I recommend you discharge this capacitor before working on the camera. It's not the best way to do it, but I'm gonna short the capacitor with a wire. Steady, steady. It's okay, it's safe now. So really, a few simple steps and then you put your camera back together, and it's guaranteed to work for many years to come. Hi, today I'm going to talk about building a gun. Oh, I know what you're thinking about. Stop making stereotype comments. The best weapon we can get in our country is a kitchen knife, while in countries like US you can get any type of weapon you like. And with all the shooting and killing in your countries, you shouldn't really call me names. And stop making fun of my eyebrows, because according to your gun-loving people, it's not guns that kill people, it's people that kill people. So all I'm doing is teaching you how to build a gun, and it's your duty to shoot each other. So don't. The gun I'm going to talk about runs purely on electricity, no fossil fuels, no harmful pollutants. You may even call it a green gun. So next time when you shoot somebody, you may feel a little bit better knowing that you've done something good for the planet. I guess in more than one way. This gun is called the rail gun. There are devices like this out there already, such as roller coasters in some amusement parks.
The wagon sits on a series of coils. Every coil has to turn on and off in a well-timed manner to push the wagon to a high speed. Same thing is done in a railgun. There are a few coils that accelerate the projectile.
I will show you a gun with only a single coil. You can figure out the rest on your own. Let's go to the lab. So here's the coil I made and a steel bullet. If I put the steel bullet inside the coil and turn the coil on, it will attract the bullet and accelerate it towards the center. As soon as the bullet reaches the center, if I keep the coil on, it will still attract the bullet and decelerate it towards the center. So the bullet will continue oscillating for a few times and stops at the center. Let me show you what I mean by this oscillation. If I put the bullet inside the coil and try to turn it on with my power supply here, well, it's always safer not to work with live loose wire, so instead I'm using these alligator clips here. I put the bullet in and turn the power supply on so you can see what's going on. There you go, you saw what happened. Oh. Always make sure the wire gauge can handle the high current.
You can see the oscillation I was talking about here.
So the key to a successful launch is that when the bullet reaches the center of the coil must turn off. Now to do that, I'm going to use an infrared sensor like this one that will detect the tip of the bullet and will turn the coil off.
Here is the schematic of the circuit I made. You can analyze it if you like.
So say hello to my little friend here. I put the circuit together and I'm gonna shoot the box. I put the bullet in and there's a switch here that acts like a trigger. So here we go. Well, it's always wise to aim away from yourself. So let's try again. Put the bullet in. Wow! Let's try it a couple of more times. Okay, let's see if we can figure out how fast the bullet goes.
Well, the circuit blew up, but I measured the speed to be close to 25 kilometers an hour or 16 miles an hour. Thanks for watching.
Hi, one of the common questions is that what kind of electricity hurts more? AC, alternating current, or DC, direct current? So I'm going to measure the electricity pain level on a human's body, which is myself. But first, let's measure the resistance of the skin on tongue and fingers for reference. So first, let's measure the resistance of dry skin. It's 600 K and above. Now if I wet my fingers with my saliva, you can see it's 100 K and above. If I measure the resistance of my tongue, it's 10 K, 20 K and above. So the resistance of the tongue is at least 30 times less than the dry skin, and it will feel the electricity at much lower levels, and for that reason I'll apply electricity to my tongue. I should tell you, I have accidentally zapped myself in the past many times and I kind of know what I'm dealing with. So you better trust me on this one and don't hurt yourselves. If you really want to know what electricity pain feels like, then take a 9-volt or less battery and put it on your tongue and you'll know. As I mentioned in my other video, a power supply like this one that can generate 70 amps doesn't necessarily hurt you at all if the voltage is set very low. Observe. No! Who the hell set this to 25 volts? Before using a power supply, always make sure its level is set properly. Let's try again, and this time I start from 1 volt, and I'll watch for 4 levels. When I start sensing electricity, when it becomes annoying, when it feels like torture, and when I can't raise it anymore. Here we go. I barely feel it at 1 volt. At around 5 volt it's kind of annoying. Yeah, I would say around 9 volt it feels like torture. Although if you want to torture someone and make them talk, you probably don't want to hurt their tongue. And besides, you should never torture each other. Always remember, people in the first world countries never torture anybody. They always hire the third world countries to do the job. Unless, of course, if you're married. That's it, I can't really go over 12 volts. I should say that women's pain threshold is higher than men, so they should be able to go to higher levels. Now let's try AC. I've heard that human body has some capacitive properties, meaning that it will let AC through easier than DC. So I expect AC to hurt more at lower levels, and also it will hurt more at higher frequencies. But before that, let me show you something. I've set the signal generator to 5 Hz 7 volt RMS. Let me change the frequency now. Nice. By the way, I can do this too. Now let's reduce the voltage level and increase the frequency all the way to 60 Hz. I shocked my ass sitting on these live wires. Always clean up the lab, otherwise something will bite you in the ass. Okay, AC is starting at 1 volt. I can definitely feel it now. It's quite annoying at 3.5 volts. Oh. It's torturing at 4.5 volts. Oh. That's it, I can't really go over 6.5 volts. So it was confirmed. According to my sensors, the AC hurts at RMS levels half of the DC level. Anything for science.
Shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it.
Hi, I woke up in the morning and I noticed a train of ants walking all the way from the balcony door to the kitchen. So I started thinking hard about how I can kill them all by electricity in one shot. It's very simple, let me explain. Imagine this is an ant. Now all we need is that all ants hold hands together like this to create a conductive path, so that I can connect a very high voltage across them and electrocute them. And even in that case, probably 1 or 2 of the ants will blow up like a fuse and will save the rest. Yay! It's not really possible, so instead I decided to use the good old bug spray and spray those ants to death. All you need to do is to spray over their walkway like this. Holy! The camera is okay. It was very dangerous. I almost burned the place down. I didn't see this stupid little fire in the fireplace. Never spray those things into fire. It's extremely dangerous. Let's study that phenomena a little bit more. Before we start, smart kids, don't try this at home. Dumb kids, stop watching right now. Okay, let's see how far the fire goes. Always put some thought in your experiments before hurting yourself. Let's try again. It smells terrible and it's about a meter long. But what if the can blows up in your hand? I don't think it will happen for two reasons. First, there is no oxygen in the can, so even if the fire gets to the nozzle, it will not explode. And second, the fire forms within a distance from the nozzle, so it doesn't even heat up the can. But how far away does it form? It started from 3 to 4 inches and went down to 1 inch, and I lost my ruler. Now I'm thinking, is it possible to weld with this? Let's see if I can weld these two pieces. Nope, it doesn't work at all.
Don't touch hot stuff.
Hi, replacing a light bulb is one of the simple things to do. The first thing you need to do is to remove the broken bulb. First, we have to make sure that the bulb is not too hot. Now that it's not hot, we can unscrew it. Oh. Sometimes when you use a lamp for a long period of time and it goes through a lot of temperature cycles and the screw part is rusted, when you try to unscrew it from the fixture, the screw part can break off the glass part and gets stuck in the fixture. Just make sure you don't cut your fingers and take the screw part out. My finger! Good thing the breaker opened. Don't just shove your finger in an electrical socket or fixture. Always make sure it's powered down or unplugged. And even then, always use a tool, not your finger. Okay, now that it is unplugged, let's use our plier and take the screw part out. Come on now. God, piece of shit. Okay, it's time to select a proper light bulb. Always make sure that the power rating of your light bulb doesn't exceed the rating of your fixture. And one more thing is that you can't really take light bulbs from some countries and use them in some other countries. Because, for example, if a light bulb is 100 watts in a country that uses 110 volts, is not 100 watts in a country that uses 220 volts. It's actually 400 watts, which means that it will blow up. I plugged the fixture back in so I can see when the light turns on. Now it's time to put the new bulb in. Just screw it nice and tight and it'll turn on. It's not turning on. I broke the bulb. Don't buy cheap bulbs and don't screw them too tight, otherwise they'll break. There's a switch. I guess I'll have to redo. Well, the lamp is already out, so always use a tool to get the screw part out. Unplug! Damn it! Unplug! Hi! I saw this video in internet and I thought it was very interesting but underexplained. The experiment involves a vibrator and is done in a bathroom. Let me show you what I've got. Here's my giant subwoofer speaker that I use as a vibrator, and there's a rubber pipe hot glued to its surface. Let's run water through it and see what happens. Here it is. Now let's turn on the vibration. It's awesome. You see all the water droplets hanging in midair? Here's my hand as a reference. It's beautiful. I feel like singing. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, it's true. I saw this thing on a page on YouTube, and I knew what I would do. I would make the same thing too. Let me do some magic. Water, go down. Water, stop. Now water, go up. And stop again. Do you think it's all edited video? Well, it's not. Here's my hand in the water. It seems like there is nothing between these two droplets. But if I put my finger between them, water appears out of nowhere. This is a miracle. If it was 1,000 years ago, I could have faked myself as a man of God and gathered millions of followers and become some holy shit. Just think of all the free stuff I could get. Well, actually I'm sure I can create a new religion today with lots of followers. There are always undecided dumbasses out there ready to be guided. It's just a matter of who gets to them first. So, it seems like the water is levitating. If that's true, then what the f*** is the sound of the pouring water? And why the f*** water is going down my drain, huh? Okay, let me show you what's going on. This is what you see, and this is what I see. But why is that? Imagine I move my hand like this. Well, actually much faster, something like this. Now imagine the camera takes shots only when my hand is in this position. Snap, snap, snap. So if I play this back, it will look like that my hand is only in this position while it's actually moving back and forth. Same goes for the water. I set the frequency of the vibration exactly the same as the frame rate of the camera, which is 30 frames per second. So the camera takes shots exactly at the same phase of the water vibration, and it will look like the water is hanging in mid-air. If I change the frequency of the vibration higher or lower than the frame rate, it will look like that the water is going down or up. But that's not all. In order to get clear shots, you need to have lots of light to be able to set the shutter speed very fast. And that's why I have two lights in this room. This is a shutter speed of 1/600th of a second, 1/300th of a second, 1/100th of a second, and 1/30th of a second. I talked enough for one video and I still have to make two more interesting videos around the same subject. But I still feel like I'm missing something.
Previously on ElectroBoom.
It's beautiful. Go up. Hi, I'm going to show you how to drive a subwoofer speaker like this to create the water experiment I showed you in my previous video. It's not easy to drive a speaker like this because it demands lots of power. This is a 6 ohm speaker, and to create decent vibration I need close to 1 amp current to run through it. So I can't just plug it into any audio jack. I need a power amplifier circuit. This is the schematic of my simple power amplifier. I discussed the circuit more in my website, but in general it amplifies both voltage and current without noticeable audio distortion. Let's put this together. I've purchased the components and I'm going to solder them on my prototype board here. Now you need some skills to use a soldering iron. One of them I've developed over years is to sense the temperature of the iron, feeling the hot air rising from the iron by the skin above my lips. The skin here is quite sensitive to temperature and you can tell the temperature quite accurately. This is not the best way and you might like to try a safer way. Oh, and don't drop the iron on your pants. It's almost finished now. Just need another piece of wire. When doing something else, always put the iron down. Now the circuit is ready to be turned on. I designed it to work with plus 6 volt and minus 6 volt supplies, and for that I'm using a 12 volt drill battery. You might say that it's not exactly a plus minus 6 volt supply, but let me show you that most drill batteries come with this extra contact, which is the center voltage of the battery. So I define that at 0, and the positive of the battery will be plus 6 volt and the negative of the battery will be minus 6 volt. Okay, let's power it up and see what happens. Oh what did I do?
What the f did you do?
I'm fine, thanks.
Idiot.
What? Every battery has a positive and a negative contact. Never connect them backwards. Oh, and if your circuit starts smoking, unplug it quickly before anything else. I've rebuilt the circuit and will turn it on now. Nice, no smoke. Oh shit. I need a signal source now. We need to generate an accurate tone for the water experiment. There are different ways to generate a tone. One of them is to take a lab signal generator, which is quite bulky and uncomfortable, or the other way is to design your own tiny signal generator, if you are an idiot. I'm sorry, what I'm trying to say is that it's not worth the trouble. Nowadays everyone has one of these smartphones, and all you need to do is to install a signal or function generator app on your phone, and voila, it's a signal generator. Also, I'm sure everyone has broken headphones. Just cut the jack with wires and solder it your circuit like this, and you can plug it into your phone. Let's turn the tone on. It works. Here's the speaker vibrating at 31 Hz. It looks as if it's moving very slow, but the grains of rice show that it's actually moving pretty fast. Sometimes the components get quite hot, supplying lots of power. Let's see. It's not too bad, but you might want to install a heatsink on them to avoid damage. I can even play music from it. Always turn the soldering iron off after you're done with it. Hi, here's the levitating water, like I showed you in my previous video. There's a big difference this time though. The room is much darker, and another big difference is that this is actually visible to the eye. This is what I actually see, and it's not a camera trick anymore. Can you believe this? I really have to sing for this one. It was a sunny summer day, one day handpicked by a god of time. That day I saw it in your eyes, that I am yours and you are mine. What? How do you think this is possible? Yes, I made this happen, but now instead of the camera, it's the light that's doing the trick. This is a strobe light. It flashes at a frequency equal or multiple of the water vibration, so it only lights up specific moments in the vibration, and the rest of the vibration remains dark. If I bring a regular light in, it will light up the unseen portion of the water, like this. This light is made of 99 LEDs. I ordered 100, but they sent me 99. I'm using a second smartphone as a signal generator to tune the frequency of the light. Here is the schematic of the LED driver. I explain it more in my website. It was a rather long process to put the circuit together. Oh my god. Okay, finally, let's power it up. It's done. Let's turn it on and see how it looks like. The LED lights can be very intense and directional, so don't look into them directly as it may hurt your eyes. And so, this is what it looks like to the naked eye. Let me see what my daughter thinks about it. You wanna come in and see what I made? Let me show you some clips of combining different frequencies. Don't pour water on your electronics. Hi, I had this epiphany yesterday. I was in a very crowded and noisy area and I was trying to listen to the speaker of my phone, and I didn't have my headphones with me either, so I couldn't hear anything at all. And then snap, I had this great idea. But before discussing the idea, let me show you the insides of a human head. Here's the ear and the ear canal that ends at the eardrum. All the noise from environment plus the audio you want to hear enter into the same canal. Now there is another canal here called eustachian tube. Here you can see that this canal connects from behind the eardrum all the way to the throat here. Many of you have used these canals before. For example, when an airplane is taking off or some other reason where the air pressure changes on the outside environment, you feel the pressure in your ears, because now the pressure on each side of the eardrum is different. Usually we do what we call popping the ear. Basically what we do is to blow air into our nose while we are blocking the air from going out. This puts air pressure on those canals and forces them to open. And when they are open, the pressure on both sides of the eardrum can equalize and we feel good in our ears. And this is what we call popping the ears. Now some people like me can open and close those canals and even keep them open. When they're open, I can even hear my heartbeat. Like, it's open right now in my head. I may sound a little bit different. So now the trick is to block your ears with your fingers so that the environmental noise doesn't get to your ears. Open those canals and keep them open, and then put your cell phone in your mouth so that the sound gets to your eardrums from those other canals. It tastes a little bit like earwax, but it's actually working very well. It works very well, although you will hear the harmonics a little bit differently. It can make you popular in a party. People will start talking to you. Hey, stupido! Well, that's all, folks. What? It wasn't exciting enough for you? Okay, let me show you something else. Here's a magnet and an iron ball. For this experiment, we need to know how close we have to get to the ball before it moves. So I slowly get closer to the ball. And this was another way to pop your ears. I hope you're excited now. Hi, how to make an electric guitar? Well, I don't know, but from the name of it, it's just a combination of guitar and electricity. Here's a simple one I made. Here's the basic electric guitar I made with 4 strings. We can add more strings if you want to. Strings are just wires stretched over a piece of wood, tied to nails on each end. The wires at this end are tied together in pairs, as you can see, and each pair is attached to one of these cables, which we can plug them into the wall power plug. Please join me for the first time to hear how it sounds. And 1, 2, 3, 4. It definitely made me sound like a rock star, although it feels more like an electric chair than a guitar. It is extremely dangerous to touch the 110 volt or 220 volt power lines. You can easily get killed. And believe me, nothing's worth touching a power line. When touching a power line, a few different things can happen. If you're wearing your plastic slippers that isolate you from ground and then touch the live wire, you still feel it, although it's not too bad. Because although you are DC isolated, you are not completely AC isolated, as there is still some capacitance between your body and ground. In some cases, due to the shock and the pain, your body can react fast. If you touch the live and neutral wires both, it's very dangerous because the circuit closes through your body. Your muscles can contract, this allowing you to let go. If the current goes through your vital organs like your heart or brain, you will very likely meet your maker.
Whoa. I am your father.
Margaret Thatcher? The funny thing is that they use electricity to save a cardiac arrest victim. Clear! What the f? If you are barefoot and touch the live wire, the current can again go through your body to ground and kill you. It can also contract your leg muscles and make you jump. It's a pity though, I thought I could share my artistic side with you. I forgot to unplug the damn thing. It definitely made me behave like a rock star though. Makes me think of the similarities.
What the Justin Bieber, mother? This is a joke.
It's obvious the problem is the electric guitar. Don't use the guitar. Hi, Ray William Johnson begged me to teach him how to make an electric toothbrush.
Jesus, I don't want to see this guy make an electric toothbrush.
It's actually quite simple. All you need is one of these milk foamer thingies that you use to make foam from milk and put it on the stuff you drink. It's actually called a frother. What the f is a frother? Mother frother. It has a DC motor and 2 AA batteries, and by pressing the button it works. Never run motors when they are loose. Now I have to make it more like a toothbrush, and for that I took this thingy from my daughter's handicraft stuff and I'm gonna wrap it around the wires of the frother. Okay, here we go. Just add some water and some toothpaste and you're ready to go. Kind of works. It's a little bit weak though. Nothing that a strong drill battery can take care of. This baby is 12 volts compared to the 2 AA's that are 3 volts total. It's gonna give it the oomph that it needs. Okay, let's power it up. I better do this one quickly. I better do stupid shit that you will regret for the rest of your life. In many applications, you don't just want a fast or slow motor, you want to be able to tune the speed. And in such cases, instead of continuously turning on the motor, they do something called PWMing. PWM stands for pulse width modulation. This means instead of having the power continuously to the motor, you modulate it by turning it on and off at a fast frequency like 10 kHz or 20 kHz. By controlling the amount of time the motor is on every period, you can set its speed. The percentage of time the motor is on every period is called duty cycle. Here you go. I have designed a very simple circuit to create a PWM with tunable duty cycle to drive the motor. It's made of a couple of blocks. This one regulates the 12 volt real battery voltage to a fixed 5 volt as the supply voltage. This one is an oscillator that generates a sawtooth waveform. This one compares the sawtooth signal to a voltage level tuned by the potentiometer, and its output is a PWM signal. As the potentiometer voltage changes, the PWM duty cycle changes. And last is the MOSFET transistor that acts like a switch and turns the motor on and off fast with the PWM signal. Some simple shit. I'll talk about it more in my website electroboom.com. It's a very simple and yet effective circuit. Let's turn it on. A polarized capacitor mounted backwards is always a big no-no. You know what? I don't think it's that we want to make bombs. It's more like whatever we touch turns into a bomb. I bet if I go to the butchery and get some sausages, they'll turn into dynamites. Okay, let's try it again. Hey, it works! Now you can control the speed for the best brushing action. Let's go to the washroom. Hi, Ray William Johnson begged me to teach him how to make an electric Hi, I went through 6 months of extreme workout. It was an absolute hardcore workout, but considering my original body, I had to do something about it. It took extreme effort and discipline to go through these routines, but the 6 months are finally over and I'm very happy that I was able to finish it. When I look at what I was before this period to what I have become after, I feel absolutely disappointed. What the f***, man? What? I told you I'm an electrical engineer, not a personal trainer, you dumbass. But wait, there is more. I have a solution that will make you work out for dear life. It's called Workout or Die. It's a simple device. It's a belt that you tie around your belly with a tiny device that senses your motion. As long as you move, you're okay. But if you stop for any reason, it'll zap you like a mother. You will move no matter what, or else you will feel the pain. The device may often false trigger. The belt is very hard to open. It's made of very durable material, resistance to sharp objects, and it cannot be cut. So you will run until the batteries die or you die. Just kidding, we have never had failed batteries. Please don't hurt anyone, including yourself. The device is very simple. It runs on 2 AA or AAA batteries and has 2 electrodes on the bottom and turns on with a switch. Now if you don't move, it senses. If you stop moving, it senses that and will shock you. Here's the schematic of my design. You can read more about it in my website electroboom.com. My motion sensor is very simple. It's just a magnet on a spring in front of a coil. If you move, the magnet shakes in front of the coil and generates electricity, and that is used to turn off the high voltage generator. If you stop moving, after a set time constant, the high voltage generator will turn on and zap the hell out of the user. The high voltage generator circuit here is simply extracted from the all-time bestseller bug zapper. You know, these things can generate around 1000 volts, enough to provide a proper shock. The external meshes of the zapper have the same low voltage, but they have a high voltage with respect to the center mesh. I can short it with my screwdriver for you to see the spark. I'm actually kidding. It doesn't zap me because the circuit doesn't close through my body. Unless I do it with my finger. So all you need is the guts of the bug zapper you see here and disable and enable it using the circuit I showed. This device can also work the other way around, meaning that it can zap when it's moved. It could be useful when somebody is moving something that you don't want them to. Good, no? Open the door. Always make sure there is a warning sign when you have an electric fence. And at the end, just wrap it in some nice packaging. With this revolutionary device, with the flick of a switch, you're ready to... But wait, there's more! Hi, I've seen this scene in movies that if you drop a bundle of live wire in water, you can electrocute and kill any creature in the water. I think it would be more believable if only the live wire was in the water so that the circuit could close through the body to the ground. But when the live and neutral wires are in the water side by side, I assume the electricity goes the shortest path and not much through the body. But I'm not sure 100%, so I'm going to try it on myself. This is some dangerous stuff, so please don't try it at home. I'm what you call a professional dumbass. This is going to waste so much water. Let's do it differently. I have a glass container filled with tap water, and I have a cable with exposed wire at the end that I'll plug into the wall here. And I can turn on a light with. So I'll put this wire in the water and see what happens. Nothing spectacular happened. I guess the tap water is not that conductive. Well, you know, according to the latest research, pure water is not conductive unless it's mixed with minerals like salt. So for example, seawater is much more conductive than tap water. I have the glass container and the wires here that are still powered and I can turn on a light with. And I put the wires in the water and attach them to the glass here. And of course I have my plastic slippers on so that the electricity doesn't go to ground through my body. I want to see if I can feel the electricity with my finger, so I'll put it in the water. Nothing. Let's get close to the wires. Nothing. Still nothing. Oh, I'm starting to feel it here. What is this? Oh, there's a cut on this finger and the electricity can go through it much easier. You know, the flesh under the skin is much more conductive. Let's find another finger that doesn't have any cuts on it. This one is not bad. Let's try this one. Nothing. 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 Let's go between the wires. Jeez, this is scary. Definitely don't try this at home. I can feel the electricity here very little. Not much. Let's get closer to one of the wires. Oh, it's getting higher. It's getting much more painful. But definitely it's not too bad. I was expecting it to zap me to death. I readjusted the wires so that they are closer to the surface. I can still turn on a light with it. Now I wonder, is it possible to turn on an LED just putting it in the water? Apparently not much, because the resistance of the water is too much to allow enough current through the LED and turn it on. Okay, I've unplugged the power. Let's do some measurements. First, the resistance of the water. It's actually 700K and rising for some reason. Actually, it's more conductive than I thought. There must be some minerals mixed with this tap water. Now let's measure the resistance of my fingers. It's actually around the same. Now I plug in the power and I read the voltage in the water. You can see at this end I'm not reading much, but as I'm getting closer and closer to the wires, I'll read a higher level voltage. And of course, if I touch the wires, I'll read 120 volts. Now if I measure the voltage around the center here, you will see that if I split the wires apart, I actually read a higher level voltage. I think it agrees with my theory. If the live and neutral wires are in the pool side by side, the voltage across the body is much smaller. But if the live wire is at one end and the neutral is at the other end, the voltage across the body would be much larger and more dangerous. Fine, let's add some salts to the water now and mix it up. Now that I have mixed the salt in the water, you can see the resistance of the water here. It is actually less than 70 kiloohms and has significantly dropped. But it doesn't mean that the voltage in the water will be any different, because the resistor network in the water has remained the same. Let's plug it in and see what happens now. Wow, look at that! The electricity is doing something with the water. I bet the chemists can explain it a little bit better than me. But you can see the voltage level is still pretty small. Like I said, the resistor network has not changed. And the voltage is pretty much changing the same. But now the water is much more conductive. Let me put my finger in the water and see if it makes any difference. Wow, the water is actually much warmer. There must be a lot of power in the water. This is the finger with the cut. Wow, I'm starting to feel the electricity here. Ouch, it's hurting. Let's try the other finger. Wow, the water is very warm now. I feel nothing with the other finger. I'm starting to feel it here. Ouch, between the wires. This is violent. Can I put my finger in the water? Ow. Okay, one last thing. Let's see if I can turn the LED in the water. Hey, look at that, it's turning on. And with the distance, the brightness goes up and down. Oops. Never forget about the dangers of your experiment. This is turning violent again. Look at this. I barely feel anything at this end. It's much worse. The water is extremely hot now. Let's look at the wire. Look at that. It's gone. Reaction of the copper with the salt and water. My poor LED is under the water. I'm thinking I can still turn it on if I bring the wires close to it. There you go, it's turning on. Interesting, no? So as conclusion, if the wires are far apart and fall into water that has chemicals in it, it's way more dangerous. So always carry an LED with you and put it in the water. If the LED turns on, don't go into the water. Hi, today I'll show you how to change your brake pads on your car. You should always change your pads whenever you hear them squeaking. It's not a complicated process if you're only changing the pads and not any other components or fluids. When you change the brake pads, you must change all the pads on the front wheels or all the pads on the rear wheels. The pads on the front wheels usually wear out much faster because there is much more force on them, unless you always drive in reverse. I'll be replacing the front pads and I'll be wearing these gloves to protect my fingers and keep them clean, although they're already covered with a thick coat of hair. Replacing the pads starts with removing the tire, which everyone should know already. You use your jack to lift the car and remove the tire. I always keep one of these hydraulic jacks in my trunk. They are powerful, small and fast. Now it's time to loosen the nuts. No, I have to put the tire back on the ground before I can loosen the nut. There you go. The nuts can become quite stiff over time. Rather than using your hands and put pressure on your back, you can use your foot and put your weight on the driver, like this. And now it's much easier to open. You can see the brake disc here, and here's the caliper. That's basically a hydraulic press that pushes the pads against the disc. If you don't replace the pads early and the pads wear out, it will start grinding the brake disc and will ruin it, and you will have to fix it or replace it. We'll need to remove these two screws from behind the caliper to remove the caliper. These screws also get quite tight and need some good force to open. Oh my god, I just hit and released the jack accidentally and the car fell over. The wheel fell right on my shoe, but I was able to pull my foot out fast. Always make sure your jack is mounted safe and stable and secure before working on your car. If you need, add more stands under your car to make sure it doesn't fall over. After removing the caliper, first make sure you won't pull on the hydraulic hose, and then remove the brake pads. You can see how much the old pads are worn out compared to the new ones. Now the first thing you need to do is to push the piston back in to make room for the thicker pads. And for that, I use my clamp. Never put your fingers in a clamp. Now we can push the piston in. You know, they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I highly doubt it. Now we can put the pads on both sides on. And then put the caliper back on. Tighten its nuts nice and tight. And put the tire back on and tighten the nuts. Now it's time to lower the jack.
And then God said, "Let there be steel-toe shoes."
The car is very heavy. Now as the last step, you have to turn on your car and press on the brake pedal a couple of times to re-engage the new pads with the disc. And then you're ready to go. Never drink and drive, kids. Hi, a Japanese watchmaking company called Tokyo Flash offered me a free designer watch in exchange for me to make a review video about them. But my channel is not about reviewing products. But they'll give me a free watch. Well, I guess I'll just ignore them. I've already ordered and received the watch. But why should I give them free exposure? They gave me a free watch. Well, I can just take the watch and ignore them, but I'm not a thief yet. But people want to see me get hurt. I can't get hurt reviewing a stupid watch. Damn it, conscience, why did I fall for a free watch? I think you should just take care of the guy. What guy? There is no guy. Just kill him already. Oh, you're just talking about the mosquito. It was a she. At least I wish it was a Rolex so I could sell it and retire. Why? 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 Fine, here's the watch. Look at it. Look at it. I sold myself for an inexpensive watch. Score! So I ordered this watch from Tokyo Flash. Apparently Tokyo Flash makes watches with innovative designs, and every watch tells time in a different, innovative and interesting way. The first thing I noticed after opening the box was that this wasn't the watch I ordered. I ordered this watch, but instead they sent me this one, which looks good, but it's not what I ordered. It's a free watch, so I can't really complain much. This watch has no buttons, but it basically has a touch screen that divides the screen into 4 buttons. In my opinion, the quality is very good and it looks very professional. It's not what I ordered. There is only one problem with this watch, it's really nothing. The problem is that you can't tell time with it. There is only one arm on the display that shows the hour, and the arm itself is actually a text that shows the number for the minutes. The font is very thin and it's very hard to read, and the blue backlight actually makes it harder to read. Maybe I could read time easier with the other watch I ordered. In my opinion, the display looks quite empty. It looks like you're wearing a watch with a dead battery, unlike the other one I ordered. Very good quality watch though, although you can't really tell time with it. But that's secondary. Oh, I have a scar on my wrist. It reminds me of that fateful day. I was cutting a piece of laminate with a carpet knife like every other idiot, and I stabbed myself and pierced my wrist about an inch deep. It took a while for it to fix itself. The human body is amazing. After I cut my wrist, the bleeding wouldn't stop. The first thing I did was to make sure that I didn't cut any strings. Then I put pressure on the wound for 15 minutes and the bleeding pretty much stopped. But then as soon as I bent my wrist, it started bleeding all over again. It was a mess. Oh yeah, the watch. Let's send it through a series of tests and see how well it withstands the environments. Starting with drop test. Oops. Oops. Well, it's still working and not broken. Let's see how it can handle the humidity. Oops. Well, it still works fine. You can probably remember my ESD gun that can generate 25 kilovolts. Now I wonder if this watch can actually handle 25 kilovolts. Oh well, no reset. Let's see if it can take the heat. Wait for the hot things to cool down before touching them. Amazingly, it's still working and not broken. Here I opened it up for you. This is the back cover and the buzzer. This is the battery holder. This is the electronics and the LCD. This I believe is the touchscreen glass. This just holds everything together, and that's the body of the watch. Well, I can say it's a very high quality and well-built watch. Check them out, I'm sure you will find something you'll like. And maybe you can even tell time with it. And if you order, you might just receive what you ordered. I didn't. Oops. 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 Hi, I've been working on a video that's taking forever, so in the meantime I thought I should keep the flow going, especially since the rise in the number of psychos getting out and killing people, both in US and Canada. You might not know this, but what really keeps those psychos under control are the entertainment and junk food industries. If those people are kept entertained in front of their TVs and monitors while eating junk, by the time they decide to kill somebody, they'll be like... Haven't you noticed in movies that all those psychos are these skinny, shaky people that are like, I really wanna kill somebody? So here I do my part. You can thank me later for saving your family and friends. Anyways, this video will show you how to make an anti-peh. Well, I actually didn't know the real name of this thing, so I did a little search and realized that its actual name is pop filter or pop shield. Very suitable names. I'll call it anti-peh. You might not know what this is for, so I'll explain. When you speak into a microphone and you say a word that has the letter P in it, your mouth generates a gust of wind that will hit the microphone, and that generates a low frequency, high amplitude, annoying pop sound. Like imagine a groom in his wedding wants to say something nice about the bride. He picks up the microphone and right there he realizes that he has left her back in the church, and he says, poop. Well, this happens in case of Christians. In case of some Muslim wedding parties, the groom may accidentally pick up the wrong woman because they're all covered and look the same. Well, they won't really say the word poop, so it's not a problem there. Cultural differences, you know. In the case of Jews, well, I better not joke about Jews. You know, I'm not exactly the right race. I personally believe that all people are the same, but the Israeli government doesn't quite agree with this. To them, some people are more equal than others. I don't want them to start bombing Vancouver as a warning just because I said something, especially with their latest knock on the roof technique. Now anti-pair basically blocks this gust of wind while letting the sound to get through to the microphone, so the recording of the sound pair sounds much better. I mean, you can really buy these things for less than $20. But first, I wanted to do a project with my daughter, and second, I spent less than $2 to make mine, and third and most importantly is that I have to keep those psychos out there entertained. So I searched through my wife's stash of fabrics and found this thin mesh of fabric. And then I was lucky to find a large magnifying glass in a loony store. The lens had already fallen off, so I gave it to my daughter to burn things with sunlight. And then I glued the fabric to the frame of the magnifying glass, and voila, the anti-pair was born. Okay, let me show you how well it works. First, without the anti-pair. Trying again. First, without the anti-pair. Now with the anti-pair. Poopy poop poop. Hear the difference? So this works pretty good, and I can use it to make my other video that's taking forever. So stay tuned and keep eating your junk food and no shooting, okay? Hi, we have set up a Christmas tree for the season, and now the problem is that one of the bulbs on the light string is broken and the entire light is down. My daughter was quite upset about the broken Christmas tree lights. Santa won't bring me gifts with these broken lights. The Christmas is ruined. I don't know why we even have a Christmas tree. We are not Christians. Jesus. Anyways, all of a sudden I had this great idea. Why not just find the broken bulb and replace it? Well, I guess that's the challenging part. Then I had a new idea. Why not zap the broken light out? Then I spent a couple of hours trying to figure out what the hell I meant with that statement. Then zap! When a light bulb burns, basically its filament breaks open, so an air gap is created that doesn't allow the current to go through, unless the voltage is high enough. See, if the voltage is high enough, an arc is created over the air gap, and then the spark becomes visible, showing and revealing the broken light bulb. Just genius. But how could everyone do this? I mean, not everyone can borrow an electrostatic discharge gun. But then it hit me. Everyone could wear socks, walk on carpet, and zap the light string. And then it took me a few hours to understand how bad that method was. And then right when I had my finger stuck in a lighter and pulled the trigger, it zapped me. The damn thing can generate high voltage. So I extracted the piezo sparker from inside the lighter. And attached it to my light string and started zapping, looking to see the sparks jumping over the air gaps, but I saw nothing. So, disappointed, I plugged in my lights and something magical happened. My string turned on. What the f***? Had I fixed it before? But I thought I had checked it a minute ago and it didn't work. I grabbed another broken string and zapped it, looking for sparks, and again nothing. Frustrated, I plugged the lights in. The lights turned on again. What the f***? I realized the sparks were doing something to fix the light string, but what was it? I mean, I wasn't gaining any one of my blown lights back. I checked the blown off bulbs and I realized that they were all shorted. This would allow the remaining lights in the string to turn on as they are all in series. So I realized that my sparks were actually breaking and shorting something in the light bulb. Let's do this experiment. Here is the piezo sparker I took out from the lighter. When you press the button, it sparks. The way these things work is that there is a piezo crystal inside the sparker, and as you may know, when you bend the piezo crystal, it generates electricity. Now, the more violently you bend or shock the piezo crystal, the more electricity it generates. Basically, in this sparker, there is a tiny hammer that hits the piezo crystal hard, causing it to generate thousands of volts and creating a spark. Now, here is a good light bulb that shows a short across it because its filament is not broken. Now I kill it by putting too much voltage across it. Oh, too hot. Let's try it like that. You can see now that the filament has blown open. I attach it to my sparker and I zap it a couple of times. Now if I measure the resistance across it, I'll see that it's shorted. Apparently there is this bridge between the wires of the light bulb that when there is high voltage, it blows short. Okay, let's fix another string. This string doesn't turn on. So I connect my sparker to its plug and I zap it a few times. Now if I plug it back in, it turns on. Magic! Well, this is awesome. It means that I don't need to spend hours to find a blown light bulb. But there's one thing, when you short one light bulb, there will be higher voltage across the remaining light bulbs. So one or two shorted bulbs might be okay, but if there are too many of them, there will be much higher voltage across the remaining bulbs that will kill them quicker. So if you have spare light bulbs, replace the ones that are dead and off in your string. If you have too many dead bulbs, then preserve the good ones and buy a new string. And out of all these, you get your own tiny taser that you can zap your friends with. Hi, I bet you have spent a lot of money in this past Halloween to buy fireworks and firecrackers. No worries, I'm here to help you make a very simple and safe firecracker that you can reuse. And it's much safer than what you can buy out there. It is actually one of my Iranian heritages I learned to make back there, among other things. But I mean, who can believe that something safe could come out of there? Anyways, to make these firecrackers, you need a few parts. Darts, screws like these, some durable elastic band, and some regular matches. Welcome to Canada. The first thing you need to do is to unscrew the head and rotate it and mount it on the tail by piercing into the tail. Well, never pierce a hole towards your body. This tail is a little bit tough, so I'm going to drill a hole into it. Do not drill, pierce, cut or do anything dangerous towards your body parts. And if you think the scene you just saw was so fake, lame and unreal, then let me show you my hand. This is a stab wound from many years ago when I tried to pierce open something with a knife and the knife tripped. And this one is also a stab wound, same day, half an hour from the first one, doing the exact same thing. And then a few years later I stabbed a 1-inch hole right into my wrist. There is no escape from the enemy who lives within. That was deep, man! Anyway, after making the hole, you can glue the head into the tail. It also helps to glue the fin because it tends to fall out often. Now you need a screw that fits loosely in the hole in the head and is longer than its depth. And then you have to tie the screw to the body of the dart with the elastic band. Here's the end result, and the elastic band keeps the screw in its place nicely. Now let's make a new one differently. For this one we don't need the tail of the dart. All we need is the head and a piece of wood like this. And we will hammer the head into the wood like this.
Here you go, son.
Thanks, Dad. You might want to have an adult hammer it for you. And now of course the elastic band and the screw need to go on. And here is how the new one looks like. Now I added a washer below the dart so that it doesn't split. Now we need to gather our charge, which is basically the flammable stuff at the end of the match. This stuff is quite safe and only ignites when you rub it against the sandpaper part of the matchbox. Don't play with matches. To gather this material, you can basically use the dart and break off the material like this. And here's how these work. You have to fill the dart with 2 to 3 matches worth of material and then you have to put the screw on nice and tight. Then you have to hit the screw on the head hard and the material in the dart make a small explosion and a big bang. This one you have to throw it onto a hard surface and that one you can hit it on the ground or on a wall. Just when you throw this one, make sure you don't hit anyone with it. Always remember, safety is my item number 2. The first one is fun. Let's try to discharge one with the hammer. I've already put the charge in and the screw on and I'm gonna hit it with the hammer. Aiming the hammer is something that comes with experience. Go with smaller strokes. Let's go outside! Now you can do it with style. You can do it with finesse. You can do it with confidence. What did I do? Some people say I'm an idiot. What others say I'm a genius. Damn it. But the truth is that
I'm just a man with mediocre knowledge. I'm not the hero that you're
So please join us to make a better world by clicking on the subscription button below. Right now our operators are working 24/7 to receive your subscription. Please leave your message after the beep. Hi there! After all the videos I made, there are some people out there that just don't get it and say it's the current that kills, not the voltage. To prove it to you once and for all, I'll be using my power supply here connected to these wires. This power supply can generate 20 volts, 150... Yes, it generates 20 volts and 150 amps. Let's short it in a more controlled manner. Well, you see, when I short it, the voltage goes almost to... I was saying, when you short it together, the voltage you can see goes to 0 and the current goes to 150. It's hot! The power supply is set to 20 volts and I'm holding the wires with my fingers. I can't even weld with this power supply. Although this power supply can generate huge amounts of current, it can't send it through my body because it's only set to 20 volts. I can't even feel it on my fingers. I like to put it on my tongue, but before that I have to reduce the voltage to something like 1 volt because, you know, the resistance of the tongue is much smaller than the skin. And still, if I short the power supply, I get the same 150 amps. Okay, you can see it still sparks. Let's try it out. What the f? I thought I set it to 1 volt. Huge. Don't completely trust the gauges on your instruments and always double check them with a meter. Now, if I short the wires, I still get the same 150 amps. And it makes sparks, but the sparks are smaller because the voltage is smaller and therefore the total power is smaller. Let's put it on my tongue. See? Nothing. Let me explain. The simplest electrical formula is that voltage is equal to current times resistance. So if the voltage is 1 volt and if the resistance of my tongue is 10,000 ohms, then the current through my tongue will be only 0.1 milliamps. In order to create 1 amps through my tongue, I'll need 1 times 10,000 ohms or 10,000 volts across my tongue. See, the voltage is the energy required to create current. In order to get hurt, you need enough current. And to have enough current, you need high enough voltage. Anything that moves, including the electrons, started moving because some sort of energy has made it move. You will not have current without the voltage, at least in room temperatures. I don't know what kind of diabolical mumbo jumbo will happen at absolute zero. Saying that the voltage doesn't kill is like saying that the earthquake in the middle of the ocean doesn't kill, it's the tsunami afterwards that kills. With that analogy, if I shoot you, it's not my fault, it's the bullet's fault. This just in, bullets are taking lives of our citizens while sending our innocent people to jail, whose only crime is to hold the gun and pull the trigger. Swear to God, I just wanted to scratch his forehead. I didn't know a bullet is capable of such animosity. In other news, our scientists confirmed that the sole reason for the global warming is the melting polar ice caps. There is just not enough ice to cool the planet anymore. Also, they discovered that the main reason for divorce is marriage. So it's not just the current that kills, it's the current and voltage hand in hand. Here's the power supply at 4 volts and I'm going to connect this thin wire to it. And you can see how the wire melts and burns under... So the power supply can't generate enough current to melt the wire. Still nothing. So I hope I'm clear. Please don't repeat that the current kills, not the voltage. There's a famous saying that goes like this: like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Hi, I have a video on the pain of electricity, but now I want to kick it up a notch and show you at what voltage it hurts over skin rather than tongue. I'll be trying 120 volt AC, 170 volt DC, and 340 volt DC. But I don't have a high voltage supply, so I put together my simple circuit. The circuit looks like this, just 2 capacitors and 2 diodes. At this point I apply the 120 volt AC, and across C1 I will have 170 volt DC, and across C2 I'll have 340 volt DC. Please check my website below if you like more detailed explanation. As you see, the voltage levels on this circuit are very dangerously high. You might use this circuit for low voltage applications, but don't use it as I do, or it might be your last day on earth. I made this simple circuit and I'll plug it in. Now the circuit is hot and the voltages on this... Something you must never forget is that some capacitors, like electrolytic ones, are polarized and you must never connect them backwards or they will blow up. Now I have replaced the capacitor on my circuit and I'll plug it in. In addition to polarity, the capacitors must be rated properly to be able to handle the voltage across them, or they will blow up, obviously. I picked 150 microfarad 400 volt capacitors as the maximum voltage these capacitors will be charged to is 340 volt DC. Now there is nothing to worry about. Like I said, everything is good. There are 3 voltages on my circuit. The first one here is the 120 volt AC, which is very dangerous. I've accidentally touched 120 volt and 220 volt AC and they hurt a lot and can kill, so I'm not gonna repeat that again. This one here is across the first capacitor, which should be 170 volt DC, and that one there is across the second capacitor, which should be 340 volt DC. Let me measure them for you. To measure the 120 volt AC, I put the meter on AC and I measure the voltage. Oh my God! Sometimes when you're probing a line, you might touch the probes, but never forget about the voltage on the probes. Here I have around 120 volt AC on the input, and if I change the meter to DC, you'll see that there is almost no DC on the input. But if I measure across the first capacitor here, you will see that there is around 170 volt DC, which is equal to the peak of the AC signal as expected. This is a much higher voltage and can provide much more power. Now let me touch this voltage. I can barely feel anything, although I feel a little bit of tinkle on my skin. But remember, if my skin is more conductive for any reason, it can hurt much more. I have 2 light bulbs here that both are 60 watts. I connect one of them to the 120 volt AC input and the other one to the 170 volt. And you see that the one on the 170 volt DC runs much brighter, and I can barely feel that one on my finger. I can even hold the bulb to the 170 volt DC with my fingers. Now let's try the last capacitor. You see there is 334 volts on this one. Let's touch this one. Ouch! Ouch! Well, this one hurts much more, but not nearly as bad as the 120 volt AC. Now let's do the light bulb test. You see the bulb on the 340 volt DC runs much brighter than the one on the AC. And yet it doesn't hurt even close to the AC. The reason is that the human body has a capacitive property that allows the AC signals to run through much easier. And therefore there will be much higher AC current that can hurt or kill a person, while the DC signal is greatly blocked by the resistance of the human body. If you are curious to know how a capacitor behaves, here is a symbol of a capacitor, and these are its plates. When there is a DC signal like this, it hits the capacitor plates like this and gets blocked, while an AC signal can zigzag between the plates like this and pass through. Hi, I'm going to show you how to design a taser, but under one condition. By no means is this safe to be used on any living creature. This is just a demonstration of a design, and if those sparks touch anybody, I won't like you anymore. A taser is basically a device that generates very high voltages above 10,000 volts and is used to temporarily disable a person, and sometimes it kills a person. It's super high voltage, what did you expect? You don't just chase somebody continuously. It is meant as a short shock to temporarily disable a person. If you like to use a taser or any other sort of excessive force and get away with it too, then just join the police force. You get a proper training, a license, certified tools, and a decent salary. Otherwise, refrain from hurting anything. To create a high voltage from a low voltage source, you need a transformer. A transformer is of the inductor family, and its output to input voltage ratio is proportional to the secondary to primary winding number of turns. Also, it only works with AC signal. So if the secondary to primary turn ratio is 100, if I apply 10 volt AC at the input, I'll have 1000 volt AC at the output. Now for my transformer, I use this one that's generally used in a car. It's called the car ignition coil and is responsible to generate sparks across the spark plugs that ignite the fuel in the cylinder. This specific transformer has this wire arrangement, and it has a secondary to primary ratio of around 60. So the output voltage will be 60 times the input. Here I connected a power cable to the primary to connect it to the wall plug. With 120 volt AC on the input, I should have close to 7000 volts AC on the output, which I'll measure. I'll plug it in. A quick research shows that different transformers work best at different frequencies. This transformer is obviously not made for the 60 Hz city power frequency. But wait! The primary winding is an inductor. Imagine it is this spring. If I force a voltage across it, it will charge and discharge based on what I dictate across it. But if I charge it and then let go, then it will discharge to a very high voltage, way beyond 100 volts, and that on the secondary means more than 10,000 volts. So for example, if I connect my 12 volt supply here to the primary and charge it and then disconnect it, the voltage of the primary should jump up, creating a huge voltage on the secondary here that should create a spark. Let's try it out. There is nothing. Is there actually a voltage? Well, my theory was right. Obviously there is high voltage on the secondary, but the problem is that that high voltage pulse period is so short it can't create an arc. But there is a way to extend that period. If I add a capacitor on the primary and then connect the supply, it charges both the inductor and the capacitor. And when the supply disconnects, the inductor and capacitor start oscillating, pouring charges into each other. So the primary voltage will look like this, which decays over time. I put this capacitor bank together and put it across the primary. Let's pulse the primary now. Look at that, I have sparks. Notice that I have sparks when I disconnect the supply. Now I need to make the sparks continuous, so they go zzz. For that I designed a simple circuit. If I press the button here, the relay here will switch back and forth, and that will charge the primary of the transformer, and the sparks will fly out of the secondary. You can read more about it in my website ElectroBoom.com. I've made my simple circuit here and I attach it to the primary, and I'm using my 12 volt drill battery as the source. Let's try it out. Wow, this is wild. You can see how far... It's a strange pain. It's as if somebody is stabbing your finger, but the blade, it doesn't stop there. It keeps going through your veins until it reaches your heart. I love it. I made it look more like a taser by gluing these nails to it. Let's look at it spark now. This gap is quite wide. Let me measure it for you. Well, you know, metal is generally conductive and electrons always find the easiest path to travel. So I would never touch any high voltage with a 100-mile long metal pole. Let's look at the spark some more. These sparks are so strong they can set a piece of paper on fire. See? Always be careful when you set things on fire at home. Hi, I'm done growing my Movember. My mustache made me look like a few people. One of them scared me every morning. The funny thing is that we Iranians fought this guy for 8.5 years, and now I'm him. The second guy that I look like is actually okay. I want to break free! I should remove this mustache before I die from some STD. I was able to raise some money for Movember to change the face of men's health. And also my Movember promotion video broke the record of the least viewed video in my channel. Now, as I promised, I shall remove this mustache. Here I have some tools that I like to use. Wax is first. It is something that's designed for women, so it's pretty mild. I'll just do a very little area here to minimize the bald skin. Ow! Look at this! There is blood coming out of every hair hole. Why would anyone use this piece of shit? There is this other technique called electrolysis hair removal, which is again mostly used by women, and some electricity passes through the hair and it falls out. I assume they use something like a taser that zaps the hair dead, and for that purpose I'm going to use my homemade taser. Okay, let's try it out. Here I'd like to thank all women for going through so much pain to make themselves more appealing to us, and I want to say it's not necessary. Some of us may like you for your looks, but at the end of the day it's your health and attitude that makes us love you, and it's much less painful to obtain. Even if you can grow a mustache like me, I'm sure there was an era that you would rule, but it's not today. I once saw in an old movie that some bearded guy in an island removed his mustache with a kitchen knife without a soap, so I was wondering if that's possible. Let's try it out. Of course, men's razors are much sharper than this. Oh, this is not doing anything. It's just peeling my skin. That was a fake. Using the knife is dangerous and will not work. I've seen some women back in Iran that burn their arm hair off on a stove, and I'm gonna try that. I have my lighter fuel here and my fire extinguisher in case anything goes wrong. Just put a dab of this on my mustache and I'm ready to go. This is a air horn. Make yourself familiar with your tools. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Achtung! Halt! Nein! Single play! Back to my less creepy self. What? I haven't said anything. Do you remember that in my other video I used the sparker of a lighter to fix the Christmas lights? So I extracted the piezo sparker from inside the lighter, attached it to my light string and started zapping. I plugged in my lights and something magical happened. My string turned on. What the f? Apparently there is this bridge between the wires of the light bulb that when there is high voltage it blows short. I noticed a few issues afterwards. Well, the first one is that now with the LED lights, although they cost a little bit more, it's much more economical in the long run to go with the LED lights. I mean, the amount of time you waste every year to fix the old tungsten lights is much more valuable. Also, the LED lights pretty much last forever and they come in good colors too. Just look at my tree.
Oh Christmas tree, oh Christmas tree, LED lights are shining. Oh Christmas tree, your plastic leaves are thriving. Permanent lifeless nature, saving the real pine trees out there. Oh Christmas tree, LED lights are shining.
But if you want to cheap out and buy the old tungsten lights and fix them with a sparker like I said, there could still be some problems. I'm thinking the lighter sparker is too weak. So instead I want to introduce you to my homemade taser. This taser can generate very strong arcs that can jump over many broken lights and breach their fuses, which will bypass the broken lights and the string will light up, like I explained in my previous video. Now this string is one that I couldn't fix with the lighter sparker and doesn't turn on either. Let's try the taser now. You should know better not to get too close to high voltage. Now the string still doesn't turn on. Now I'll use the taser. I found this light with some serious issues. Well, you see, this one is beyond repair because it has connection issues as well as many dead lights. See, it's the problem of this method. It only works if you have this type of light and there are few dead lights and there are no broken wires or misconnections. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. Now I have another string that hopefully has fewer dead lights. Still doesn't work. And let me zap this one. Ow! There is no easy way to use this damn taser. Let's try it again. Okay. Still doesn't work. Well, I think this taser is so strong and it's actually killing the lights. The light momentarily turned on and died again. So that's it. Don't use the taser, it's too strong. If you want, use the lighter sparker. It may fix your lights. If it didn't, throw your lights away, buy LEDs and save yourself a world of hassle. Hi, I stumbled upon this video talking about a circuit called Slayer Exciter that supposedly generates very high voltage.
The circuit is very simple.
In this video, with the link provided below, the guy talks about how to make this overly simple circuit, which is obviously a fake. If you listen closely,
the secondary coil,
you will hear that the guy actually has an accent.
75 turns.
Of course, you can never trust a guy with an accent.
Is the primary, with.
Also, the bulbs light up too bright for such a puny circuit. This circuit is all over the web, and people make it sound like it actually works. But a quick analysis of the circuit shows that this circuit relies on a feedback from the secondary winding of the transformer. But the other end of the secondary is not connected anywhere. It's open circuit and can't affect the transistor. But some people so firmly believe in this circuit that I just had to make it to put an end to this. Here is a transformer I made which I wanted to use to make a Tesla coil. I made my simple circuit connected here and I'll turn it on with my power supply. Here I turn on the supply. See? No sparks. There is not even a high voltage here that I can feel. So it's impossible for this to excite a fluorescent bulb. What the f? Was I wrong? Well, I'm never wrong. Well, you're pretty much always wrong. You pretty much always shut up! Well, I guess I'd have to apologize to my friend. I'm sorry. To my defense, he did have an accent. After Internet and I pour our brains out, we realized there was in fact an important component missing from the schematics, which is this parasitic capacitor that exists naturally between the secondary winding to ground. It is an extremely small capacitance, but is enough to close the loop and make the circuit oscillate. So this circuit can generate very high voltage, in order of thousands of volts, that can excite the fluorescent material inside the bulb. But before you start babbling about that, hey, there's high voltage and you touch it and you don't die, so it must be the current that kills, not the voltage. I should say, please stop being a moron. Volt jolts, current kills. Who came up with that crap? Yes, there is high voltage here now, but it can only deliver very little current, which means that it cannot maintain its high voltage if more current is drawn. See, if I bring my hand close to the coil, even without touching it, some of the energy is absorbed by my hand, which causes the voltage to drop. So much that if I touch the coil, the voltage drops to zero from thousands of volts and the light goes out. As I measured, this circuit has a resonance frequency of 1 MHz. Now I want to boost this circuit. Here is my new circuit, which is pretty much the same concept, but beefed up. Please see my website for more details. Let's try the beefed up circuit now. Wow, much bright. Most satisfaction. The light is actually getting warm. This is what's called wireless power. The power supply is spending energy to turn on the light. But if I bring my hand between the coil and the light, my hand blocks and absorbs some of the energy and the light goes dim. Shit, am I getting cancer from this? If I bring my finger close, there are some sparks that burn my finger, but they don't have any short-term effect. In general, it's better to isolate yourself from harmful electrical signals. Now I bring a ground wire close. See, because of the very high voltage, the charges start flying from the tip of the wire. When I touch the piece of wood with the ground wire, the charges find their way through the wood. And here's a napkin on the secondary winding. Oh, shit. This circuit can be further beefed up. Hi, I want to make a full bridge rectifier. That's right, it's not a dumb single diode rectifier, it's a full bridge. What is a rectifier? It basically converts AC alternating current into DC direct current. Full bridge is basically made of 4 diodes in this arrangement. The rectification can also be done with a single diode. What's a diode? It's like an electrical check valve that allows current in one direction but blocks it from going back. If you provide an AC voltage to a single diode, it outputs the positive half of the wave. If you put a capacitor at its output, it holds the voltage close to the peak of the wave as DC. Now a full bridge rectifier converts both the positive and negative peaks into positive bumps at the output. Adding a capacitor at the output converts it into DC again. Generally, a single diode is used for low power rectification as well as DC reverse polarity protection. But a full bridge rectifier is used for high power rectification as well as reverse polarity protection. Now here's my design. When connected to 120 volt AC line, it is designed to output close to 170 volt DC at no load and capable of driving 10 amp maximum load. So naturally there is a 10 amp fuse at the input for protection, then the diode bridge. The added inductor helps with ripple filtering. Here's what I've made. It is pretty huge, which of course can output over 1000 watts, unlike your puny wall adapter that can do 20 watts at best. Now let's plug it in. I have some loose wires connected to my circuit which I will stick into the power plug. As you can clearly see, I have no regards for safety. Don't be like that. See, this electricity is not going to jump at you because it doesn't have high enough voltage to jump. The only way you would get hurt is by touching live wire. So insulate your circuit properly, wear safety gloves, and don't touch with your bare hands. Bare hands. Bah! Why do you call them bare hands? I'm going to touch 170 volt DC with my bare hands. There is 166 volt on the output. Now I'll put my finger across the output. See, I can barely feel it. DC is much less dangerous than AC. Barely. What's up with birds in your language? I feel so barely today. Brr. Bridge rectifiers are widely used in AC to DC converters. As far as I know, all your wall adapters contain one of these circuits. Now I will measure some waveforms. I connected the probe to my output lines, connected my circuit to this power bar, and now I will turn the power bar on. My fuse just blew up. Something I realized the hard way is that the ground of the probe is actually shorted to the earth of the power plug through the scope. So what happens is that when I connect the ground to the negative output of the bridge, it shorts the live wire to earth every negative cycle of the AC. And that's why we have fuses, to avoid exciting wires. Now I'm using this tape called Kapton tape to insulate the earth of the power cord. I have the same setup again, and with the probe connected, I turn the power bar on. We are safe now. As you can see on the scope, the output voltage is around 170 volts. Now I like to use my 100 ohm resistor and connect it to the output to see how the waveform changes. A quick calculation shows having 170 volt across 100 ohm generates 300 watts of power. It's like having a 300 watt lamp between your fingers. It burns your skin very quickly. Now I use pliers to hold the resistor. See, the output voltage drops, but with very small ripples because there is a lot of filtering. Wow, I was holding that. I let it cool down for a while and the ceramic core takes a long time to cool down, and now you can see that the resistor is made of resistive wires wound around the ceramic core. Anywho, this power supply will eventually feed my high power Tesla coil driver circuit. Oh, remember, in such circuits, although unplugged, the capacitors hold charge for a long period of time, so always discharge them with some resistor.